All right, let's dive into this one. The case of Dr. Hawley Crippen. It's a story that never seems to lose its grip, does it?
It's a real head-scratcher. A quiet doctor one minute, a fugitive the next.
Accused of murdering his wife, Cora, back in 1910. It was a worldwide sensation. But was he really guilty? Or, like some people say now, just incredibly unlucky?
Well, that's what we're here to figure out, right?
Exactly. And we've got quite a bit to work with. Trial transcripts, old news articles, even more recent analyses of the case. We're talking original sources and modern perspectives.
Now, that's the best kind of deep dive, don't you think?
Yeah.
You can really get a feel for how the story unfolded, and maybe, just maybe, we'll uncover something that everyone else missed.
Couldn't agree more. So let's start at the beginning, with Hawley and Cora themselves. They weren't exactly a lovey-dovey couple, were they?
Not from what I've read. He was a homeopathic doctor, kind of reserved by all accounts,
And Cora?
a bit of a firecracker, aspiring actress, known for her temper, and, well, maybe a little too friendly with other men, if you catch my drift.
Ah, so already some tension in the marriage.
Yeah, you could see that. And then you add in their life in London. Not exactly a smooth ride. Cora's acting career never really took off. Hawley struggled to practice medicine with his American qualifications. And, of course, money was always an issue.
It sounds like a recipe for disaster, really.
It does, doesn't it? And on top of all that, there was infidelity. On both sides, actually.
Oh, yeah. Cora was rumored to have affairs. And then Hawley got involved with his typist, Ethel and Nev.
Young Ethel. So, yeah, their home on Hilltop Crescent. Let's just say it wasn't exactly a happy place.
And then in 1910, Cora disappears, vanishes into thin air.
At first, Hawley's story was that she'd gone back to America. But Cora's friends, they weren't buying it.
They started noticing inconsistencies.
Right.
Like things that just didn't add up.
Exactly. It wasn't just small details either. Big gaps in his story, contradictions, definitely raised some eyebrows.
And instead of trying to clear things up, Hawley does something pretty drastic.
Oh, you mean running off to Canada with Ethel?
Yeah.
Disguised as a boy, no less?
You can't get much more suspicious than that, can you?
Talk about a red flag. And the crazy thing is, they almost got away with it.
Almost.
If it hadn't been for Captain Kendall on the SS Montrose. Sharp guy. He noticed something off about them, sent that wireless message to the authorities. Can you imagine that? Getting that message?
I mean, it's straight out of a movie. Scotland Yard Inspector Dew, boarding the ship, confronting Crippen. Incredible. But now the pressure was really on, wasn't it? They had Hawley, but where was Cora?
And that's when things take a very dark turn. Remember, Hawley had already admitted to lying about Cora. So when they searched the house on Hilltop Crescent,
They found the remains.
in the cellar, buried under the floor,
Gruesome. And they thought it was Cora, right?
well, they found a piece of skin with a scar. And it seemed to match one from Cora's medical history. So yeah, they believed they had their victim.
And then there was the hyoscine.
Ah, yes. A powerful sedative. Traces of it were found in the remains. And guess what? Hawley had bought some hyoscine just before Cora disappeared.
The prosecution's case was starting to look pretty strong. Poisoning, dismemberment. It's a chilling picture.
Definitely. But here's the thing. Years later, a forensic pathologist, John Tristrail, he started poking holes in that narrative.
Really? How so?
He pointed out that poisoners, they rarely mutilate bodies. Doesn't really fit the MO. Plus, Hawley went to work every day. When did he have time to dismember a body? The timeline just didn't make sense.
Interesting.
And that's not all. Tristrail questioned the whole scar identification thing, too. He said it might not have been a scar at all, just a fold in the skin, maybe made worse by the pressure of the soil, over time.
Ah, I see. So maybe not as clear-cut as everyone thought.
Exactly. And then there's the pajama top they found with the remains.
The one that supposedly belonged to Hawley.
That's the one. But get this, the fabric type, it wasn't even manufactured until after they moved into Hilltop Crescent.
Wait, so if those weren't Cora's remains?
Was the evidence planted? Was Scotland Yard feeling the heat from the public? It makes you wonder. It's a thought, isn't it? And that's where Trustrail's theory comes in. He actually suggests that the remains could be from a woman who died during a botched abortion, a backstreet kind of thing.
Whoa, wow. That's a whole different direction.
It is. But it could explain some things, couldn't it?
Like what?
Well, think about the hyoscine. Back then, they did use it sometimes in obstetrics, like to induce a sort of twilight sleep.
Makes sense.
And another thing, the stomach was empty. If the person had just eaten a big meal, like Cora did that night.
It wouldn't be empty, yeah.
Right. So Trustrail's saying this abortion scenario, it fits the evidence better than the whole poisoning idea.
But why didn't Hawley say that? If it was true, I mean.
That's the question, isn't it? Was he covering for someone? Or maybe, was there another victim? We just don't know.
It's like we're missing pieces of the puzzle.
We are. And that's the thing with these old cases. We only have so much information to go on.
True enough. So let's talk about Hawley's own words. During the trial, he claimed Cora had threatened to leave him before, said it was all just another one of her dramatic exits.
Interesting.
And he said he didn't notice any missing clothes or luggage, which is odd if she was really planning to run off to America.
You'd think she'd pack a bag or two, wouldn't you?
Exactly. But Hawley insisted that she left him for this guy, Bruce Miller, someone she was supposedly having an affair with.
So he's claiming she ran off with another man. Classic.
And he admitted to lying about her death, of course. Said he was trying to avoid a scandal.
And the flight to Canada.
Panic, he said. Wanted to start a new life with Ethel. He even claimed that he wrote that note about jumping overboard because a quartermaster told him to. Trying to protect Ethel, supposedly.
So he's painting himself as the victim here.
In a way, yeah. A desperate man making bad decisions.
But there are still some big holes in his story. If Cora really ran off with this Bruce Miller, why hasn't anyone ever found her?
That's a good point. And what about those letters? The ones claiming to be from Cora, sent to the Home Secretary, saying she was alive and well.
Were they real?
Yeah.
Or just someone trying to help Hawley out?
Right. Were they genuine or hoaxes? And here's another thing. If Hawley really believed Cora went to Chicago, wouldn't the police there have looked for her?
Seems like a pretty obvious step, doesn't it?
It does. And then there's the quartermaster who supposedly told Hawley to write that note. Why didn't anyone ever track him down? If he was really involved, his testimony would have been important.
Yeah, you'd think so. It's like so many loose ends.
So many unanswered questions.
Yeah.
And just when you think you've got a handle on this case, there's Bombshell. Remember those remains they found in the cellar?
Yeah.
2007, they did DNA testing on them. It wasn't Cora.
Hold on. So if that wasn't Cora, whose body was it? And was Hawley involved in that death too? Or was he, like he claimed, just the unluckiest man alive?
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Was he a clever killer who got away with it? Or was he actually innocent all along? That DNA evidence changes everything, but it still doesn't give us a clear answer, does it?
Nope, not at all. Just adds another layer of mystery to this whole thing. And we may never really know what happened to Cora. Did she just disappear? Or was there something darker going on that we haven't figured out yet?
I mean, the lack of physical evidence makes it tough. We have Hawley's story, what people said about them, and all that circumstantial evidence that got everyone so riled up back then. But without Cora's body, or a good explanation of where she went, we're left with more questions than answers.
It's like a puzzle with missing pieces, isn't it? We can put together the events before she vanished, look at what they said at the trial, and consider all those theories that have come up over the years, but we're still missing that one key piece, that final answer.
And that's what keeps people coming back to this case, even over 100 years later. Makes you think about the evidence, public opinion, and just how unpredictable people can be.
Absolutely. So, what do you think after all of this? We've gone through a lot of information, different perspectives, and a whole bunch of unanswered questions. Now it's up to you to decide. Was Hawley Crippen a cold-blooded murderer who outsmarted everyone? Or was he just a guy caught in a bad situation, labeled a villain, even though he might have been innocent?
Don't forget, that DNA evidence really casts doubt on that guilty verdict. But it doesn't automatically mean he was innocent either. It just makes this already complicated case even more confusing. Maybe someday, new evidence will come to light, and we'll finally know what really happened to Cora. We'll finally have a solid answer.
Until then, the story of Dr. Crippen reminds us that sometimes the past holds secrets that we may never fully uncover.
That's the mark of a truly great mystery, isn't it? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Crippen case. Hope it gave you something to think about.